Justin handled logistics, setting up decoy media events in New York to keep attention away from their movements. Quincy used his connections in the entertainment industry to distract the press, feeding them stories to keep them off their father's trail. Meanwhile, Christian focused on working with Officer Wilkins to figure out how to slip their father out of MDC without raising alarms. The plan was dangerous, but with every detail they gathered, they grew more confident that they could pull it off. Chapter 6. The Breakout. The night of the plan finally arrived. Everything had to go perfectly. Blam Blam's crew created a diversion outside the jail, setting off an alarm that sent several guards running in the opposite direction when they flew an explosive attached to a drone into the side of the building, which detonated on contact and was reminiscent to a 9/11 type of situation, only on a much smaller scale. Inside, Officer Wilkins quietly disabled certain security cameras, giving other corrupt officers in on the job a brief window to move. And Christian, Justin, and Quincy waited in a black Cadillac SUV near the back of the facility. Their hearts raced as the seconds ticked by. Finally, they got the signal. The door to the back of the jail swung open, and there stood their daddy Diddy, flanked by two of Blam's gangsters. His face was hard but relieved. He climbed into the lack truck without a word, and now they sped off into the night, the streets of Brooklyn fading behind them as they headed towards the Verrazano Bridge. The plan had worked, but as they drove south, heading toward Miami, where Diddy's yacht waited to take them offshore to an island nation, Christian couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They had freed their father, but the consequences were far from over. The world would soon know what they had done, and they would have to face whatever came next. Chapter 7. Heading South. The sound of tires screeching on asphalt echoed through the Brooklyn night as the Combs gang sped away from the Metropolitan Detention Center. Sean Diddy Combs sat in the backseat of the luxury SUV, his mind racing almost as fast as the vehicle. His sons, Christian, Justin, and Quincy, were silent, each focused on their roles in the escape. They had done the impossible, freed their father from a high-security federal jail, but it was far from over. The city was now on high alert, and the Combs gang was about to embark on a dangerous journey south. As they crossed the Verrazano Bridge in Staten Island, Christian received a call. It was Bloody Gary, the Bloods OG from California.
Y'all good?
He chirped into the iPhone. Yeah, we out, but the city hot, bro, King Combs replied, keeping his voice low. We're heading south to the 305, trying to stay under the radar.
Good. I got some spots along the way where you can lay low if needed. Just stay smart, lil nigga. The Fed's gonna be all over this shit.
Christian nodded, even though Gary couldn't see him. He knew the stakes. The plan was to get to Miami, where Diddy's yacht awaited, ready to take them to a secluded offshore island where they could regroup. But first, they had to avoid roadblock, police surveillance, and anyone else looking to make a name by capturing the Combs gang.
Keep your phone on,
Gary barked before hanging up. Christian looked over at his father, who was staring out the window, deep in thought. Diddy's face was stoic, but his eyes held a mixture of relief and unease. He was free, but only temporarily. The reality of their situation was setting in. They were fugitives now. Justin, who was driving, glanced in the rearview mirror. How we looking back there? Christian checked behind them. Clear for now. They had planned for this. The car they were in was registered to an attorney friend that Christian had hired for a case he caught a few years ago. Gary's East Coast connections had arranged for another car to be waiting at a safe house in Jacksonville, Florida, once they made it there. From there, they would continue their journey south, avoiding major highways and keeping their profile low. The highways of New Jersey gradually gave way to the dark, winding roads of the countryside as they left the Northeast behind. Each mile brought them closer to safety, but also deeper into danger. Chapter 7, family tensions. Inside the SUV, the tension was palpable. They had made it out, but the consequences of their actions weighed heavily on everyone, especially Diddy. For hours, the car had been silent, aside from the occasional direction or status update. But as they passed into Virginia, the dam finally broke. Diddy, who had been leaning back with his eyes closed, suddenly sat forward.
"We need to talk, y'all."
Christian shifted in his seat. He knew this moment was coming. Diddy's voice was calm but firm.
"Y'all little niggas brought the Bloods into this.
Christian glanced at his father. "It was the only way, Pops."
Y'all realize what you done, right?"
Diddy's voice rose slightly, though he kept his composure.
The feds are probably already watching those motherfuckers. If they're tied to this, we got more problems than just me getting out of jail. They gonna come down on us harder because of the gang connection."
Christian leaned forward, trying to stay calm. "Dad, we didn't have a choice. You were locked up, and the only way we were getting you out was by using those niggas."
The feds are probably already watching those motherfuckers. If they're tied to this, we got more problems than just me getting out of jail. They gonna come down on us harder because of the gang connection.
Justin, sensing the rising tension, tried to mediate. "Look, we're already in this. Arguing isn't going to help right now, Dad. The important thing is getting to Miami and figuring out what to do next. Let's focus on that." Quincy, quiet until now, nodded. "Justin's right, Dad. We need to stay on track. We can't afford any distractions." Diddy exhaled, running a hand over his face. He knew his sons had done what they thought was best, but the risks were growing by the minute. He wasn't just a celebrity anymore. He was a fugitive, and the people helping them were dangerous. "Fine," Diddy said, his voice softening.
"But we have to be smarter moving forward."
Christian nodded, grateful that the conversation hadn't escalated further. He knew how his dad could snap at any given moment and start yelling. As the night stretched on, they continued south, inching closer to Miami and their chance at freedom. Chapter 8, The Seaport Stop. By the time they reached the outskirts of Savannah, Georgia, the sun was beginning to rise. The gang was exhausted but alert. They had managed to avoid any major roadblocks so far, but something about the quiet, early morning atmosphere felt funny.
Yo, Christian, we got a problem. One of the guys back in Brooklyn in Blam Blam's crew wasn't cut in on the $5 million payment for the job. He got pissed, started talking to the feds.
Christian's stomach dropped. "What you mean he talked to the Fed?"
Word is, he gave them everything. What car y'all driving, where y'all heading, all that shit. Y'all need to switch cars fast.
Christian's mind raced. Blam Blam's Man Block Red was supposed to be part of the operation, but in the chaos of the escape, he had been left out of the payout. Now, out of anger and greed, he had sold them out. "We gotta change cars, y'all," Christian yelled out, turning to his dad and his brothers. "Blam Blam's boy tipped off the feds. They know what car we're in." Justin's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What the fuck do we do now? Before Christian could answer, the flashing red and blue lights of a police cruiser appeared behind them, followed by another and another. Within seconds, the peaceful Georgia highway they were cruising on turned into a battlefield. "They got us," Quincy said, his voice tense. Diddy, always calm under pressure, leaned forward. "Don't panic, just drive." But it was too late. More Georgia State Trooper units appeared in the distance, blocking off the highway ahead. A police helicopter hovered above, its searchlight zeroing in on the SUV. "Hang on," Justin shouted as he floored the gas, attempting to speed past the barricade. The police gave chase, and soon they were barreling down Interstate 95 south, weaving between the sparse traffic at breakneck speed in the early morning hours. The SUV swerved dangerously as Justin tried to evade the police, but the odds were against them. The hillbilly troopers were closing in. Suddenly, a state trooper performed a pit maneuver, striking the back of their vehicle and sending it spinning out of control. The SUV screeched to a halt on the side of the highway, smoke billowing from the tires. It was over. Chapter 9. arrested again. The Combs gang was dragged from the wreckage of the SUV, handcuffed and thrown to the ground by the angry, yelling Georgia state troopers. The flashing lights of police cars lit up the early morning sky as Diddy and his boys were arrested one by one. For Diddy, this was a nightmare scenario. The escape had been successful, but now he was back in custody, this time under even harsher circumstances. At the Chatham County Jail, Diddy and his sons were placed in separate holding cells. Authorities didn't want them communicating or plotting another escape. The media caught wind of their capture almost immediately, and once again, headlines across the country exploded with news of the Combs gang's downfall. Worse yet, Atlanta District Attorney Fannie Willis was awakened with the news and arranged for Diddy and his sons to be transferred to Alto State Prison, one of the roughest facilities in the country, due to their high-profile status. The DA wanted to make an example of them and ensure they wouldn't attempt another escape in the little country Savannah jail. Within days, Diddy and his sons found themselves inside Alto, surrounded by hardened criminals and dangerous gangs. The situation had gone from bad to worse, and there seemed to be no way out. And if y'all want to hear about all of the wild and freaky shit the Combs gang went through in the tow, then check out part 3 by hitting the link when the clip pops up at the end of this video.